welcome back to WMMA Now with your host Chuck Stevenson, coming at you tonight with a fight preview. We're going to Chicago, Illinois for UFC 238 strawweight division. Angela Overkill Hill is coming in at 9-6, taking on 9 Yan Xiaonan, or if you prefer the Western way, Xiaonan Yan, coming in at 10-1. Should be an interesting matchup of primarily strikers. Before we break down each individual fighter, let's look at the stats between the two, comparing the two. So Hill is the older fighter by 2 years, 31 to Yan's 29. Hill also has more experience. She is 9-6. However, Yan has the better overall record at 10-1. Hill is coming off, a unanimous decision win over Jody Escobar, preceded by back-to-back losses to Courtney Casey and Randa Marcos, respectively, whereas Yan is coming in on 3 straight wins, undefeated so far in the UFC. Yan is the taller fighter, 5 feet 5 inches to Hill's 5 feet 3 inches. However, Hill has a 1.5 inch reach advantage, 64.5 inches to Yan's 63 inch reach. Okay, so we've looked at how the fighters compare statistics wise. So let's break down each individual fighter. And we'll start with the UFC veteran Angela Hill. Let's start with Hill's strengths. Hill has an underrated clinch game. If she can get you into the clinch, you know, she's very good at landing some knees and some punches and elbows into clinch. You rarely ever hear about Hill's clinch game, and that's why I say it's very underrated. She did fairly well in the clinch against Courtney Casey, and she did much better than expected when she faced when she first came back to the UFC and took on Jessica Andrade. She landed some nice knees. She got a knockdown against Andrade. It might have been a slip, but it looked like a knockdown to me. So yeah, Hill has an underrated clinch game. To add to that underrated clinch game, Hill has a strong chin, and she knows how to roll with the punches. You know, going back to that Andrade fight, Andrade was landing some hard punches on Hill. And Hill was not only able to absorb most of them, but because of her ability to roll with the punches, she wasn't feeling the effects of most of them. She didn't really get hurt by anything Andrade landed until well into the 3rd round. And then finally, Hill brings in a high-level experience that Yan just doesn't. Hill has been against the current UFC strawweight champ. She's been in with the former strawweight champ. She's been in with the top contender Tecia Torres, and just has been in with a bunch of people in the current top 15. Granted, they're not all wins. The first 3 I mentioned were all losses, but that experience means a lot compared to a fighter who is coming in that doesn't have any real top 15 experience. So that experience could carry Hill to victory. Okay, so since we've looked at Hill's strengths, let's now look at her keys to victory. First, I think she needs to test Yan's ground game. Yan hasn't lost since 2011, I believe. Excuse me, one sec. She hasn't lost since 2010, so 9 years ago, and that was a loss by submission to Karina Hallinan. Since then, I haven't seen anyone really test her ground game, and we don't know how far along it's come since then. Now, Hill is not a super accomplished ground fighter, but she has held her own against the likes of former Invicta champ Livia Souza. So I think I would like to see Hill possibly attempt to test her ground game against the relatively unknown ground game of Yan. Also, Hill needs to bring that ability to roll with the punches in. Yan hits kind of hard, you know. Don't let the fact that she's a skinny little strawweight fool you. Yan throws hard. So Angela's going to be able to need to roll with the punches this time. And then finally, Hill needs to stay busy. She's not a power striker. She's a volume striker. So volume strikers need to stay busy. They need to keep working. So as long as she stays busy, she'll do all right. Okay, so now that we've looked at Angela Hill, let's look at her opponent, Yan Xiaonan. Yan's strengths. So Yan throws a large variety of strikes. She's not just throwing punches. She's not just throwing front kicks. She's throwing side kicks. She's throwing elbows. She's throwing knees. She's throwing just about everything but the kitchen sink. If she could bring the kitchen sink to the octagon with her, she'd be throwing that too. Yan throws a large variety, and she uses it very effectively, especially that lead side kick and that push kick. Very good at keeping her range with that, and she uses that to lead off her combinations as well. Also, I mentioned that Yan throws hard. She doesn't just throw hard, she throws with bad intentions. You know, a lot of people bag on certain fighters for being, the ish fighters, they're breathing with everything. Yan doesn't ish, she grunts. It's ha 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 ha. It's everything, and she is throwing hard with that. It goes back to the old Mike Tyson saying, he said, I throw every punch with bad intentions. Well, so does Yan Xiaonan. I mean, she is out there to hurt her opponents. And then finally, Yan brings in a relentless pressure. She is, in a way, she's like the current UFC strawweight champion, Jessica Andrade, in that she brings in a relentless pressure. Yan is constantly moving forward, constantly working, relentless with that pressure. So now we've looked at Yan's strengths, let's look at her keys to victory. First of all, she needs to maintain that pressure. I think if she maintains that pressure, she can wear Hill down. In her last few fights, Hill has shown a propensity to be very active with the footwork in the first round, and then she gradually slows down in the second and third. So if Yan can maintain that pressure, she'll be able to wear Hill down. Second of all, she needs to keep the fight at range. As I said, Hill has an underrated clinch game, whereas Yan is best at range, where she can use both her punches and her kicks most effectively. And then finally, much like Hill, she also needs to stay busy. She is mostly a volume striker. Yes, she does throw hard, but she doesn't have a whole lot of power behind those punches. So she needs to stay busy. Okay, guys, so now that I've broken down both fighters individually after looking at how they compare stats-wise, now it's time to make my predictions. So, based on recent performances and forward momentum, I'm going to go with Yan Xiaonan. I think that her constant pressure and moving forward and just being able to keep throwing and in combination with her variety of strikes is going to be very effective against Angela Hill, who, as I said earlier, has tended to tire out as her last several fights have gone on. So, and I believe, whereas Yan has not shown any propensity to get tired across 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Yan Xiaonan by decision. I don't see Yan stopping Hill. I mean, if you look, Hill has never been stopped by strikes, whereas Yan, she has stopped opponents by strikes in the past. But if you look at them, none of them have more than a single fight experience before that. So she just doesn't have that ability to stop experienced fighters. So I'm going to go with Yan by decision. So that's it. Let me know what you think about the preview. Let me know how you think the fight's going to go in the comments down below. Of course, thumbs ups are always appreciated. And what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA Now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. And we'll see you next time.